we've got some super people here, some good inputs, but first of all, before we even start, we've got our changemaker, Finlay, here. And I just need to say 3 things about him, really. He's fab, number one. We both live by the sea, and we both care about that, and we both, I think, would never live anywhere else, so high five to that. And he's been associated with Sea Shepherd officially. I'm going to read it from here. He's a Sea Shepherd Global Shark Ambassador. I'm a huge fan of what Sea Shepherd are doing. Been on the boat, high five the crew, and I'm honoured, mate, to be here with you. So he's got things to say to you, and I've asked him to stay on the panel too, because how can we talk about going global without having a student's voice? He's 11, so he already knows much more than most of us. So get up there on your platform, mate, and give him hell. Okay, thank you, Finlay.
Well, I'm Finlay, I'm 11 and I'm from Ullapool in northwest Scotland, and I've lived by the sea for the last 5 years, and I love the ocean, snorkelling, marine environment and sharks in general. My first campaign was in February 2018. It was in Gairloch, and they were planning on downgrading the sewer systems, so I lobbied the Scottish Water, who were doing it, and local MSPs with emails and letters. I attended a protest on the beach in February to highlight the fact that we use it all year and not just in the summer. It's on the Northwest Living Sea Snorkel Trail, which is a trail where you can go snorkeling and you're guaranteed to see at least something. The impact on the tourism there, it's part of the NC 500, so it's got a large thing to do with tourism. And it actually worked out, and the highest quality filtration was retained. Now, the most important, I'd say, campaign I've done was the Bear Grylls Adventure Park, of which we got pictures around there showing up of. Bear Grylls made a shark tank, put sharks in it, and this is all the deadliest and most dangerous things you can do, and it said swimming in sharks was one of them, which is obviously a negative shark promotion. It's unsuitable conditions for the sharks. I tried to go in there and talk to them, but I was refused entry, and the Shark Trust got involved, and Paul Cox, the organiser of Shark Trust, decided, can we get some money from that? So they were getting £1 per dive. And because of the campaign, and I was not afraid to speak out, I was made the Shark Ambassador by the Sea Shepherd. This campaign continued, I didn't give it up. I met Chris Packham in Edinburgh at the Big Picture Lecture, which is all about we can't just... in order to save sharks, we've got to save other things as well, like the plankton and other things like that. We had a 20-minute chat just about sharks, Bear Grylls, climate change and plastic pollution. He invited me to London to speak at his People's Walk for Wildlife in order to raise awareness for all the campaigns I've done, as well as so I can meet some new friends. And he's tweeted messages of support to me, and it's been amazing, and we've kept in contact ever since. So the big picture... their one thing is think like a mountain, which means don't think of one thing at the top, the biggest, the most amazing, like the sharks or an eagle. Think about the small things as well, like the midges or the moles or the rats, because they're undermined animals. Without them, we'd all be in a very difficult situation. So the threats for sharks is very simple: shark finning, plastic pollution, and climate change. So to do with shark finning, it's a rough picture. 73 million sharks are killed annually. You can legally, to do with cultural stuff, you can bring 17.5 kilograms of shark fins into the UK, even though you can't bring sausages and cheese. It's still being served in 19 British restaurants. I contacted with Bite Back, which is a shark charity, to help with the campaign. I wrote to all the restaurants that were serving it, and we managed to get one to quit, so that's how we've got to 19. And I've been raising awareness about issues of sharks and everything on social media and my website, and I've been to talks, I've given talks to schools to educate kids and teachers. So plastic pollution is a big problem, as we all know, and we had a campaign in Ullapool, the Nature All campaign. We were the first village in all of Europe to be plastic straw free. Beach cleans, we should all do them to realise the scale of the problem. The Drain campaign, which was set up by Sunnyside Primary in Glasgow, who did the No Straw at All campaign with us, which the pictures are there, is really important. So that's about realising that everything is connected to the sea, and everything goes to the sea. No matter what, say a cigarette butt is dropped on the floor, rain will wash that into a drain and it'll go and into the ocean. I went to the SIMC, the Scottish International Marine Conference, to do with litter and rubbish problems, and it was keeping up to date, meeting people and spreading the message about plastic. And again, raising awareness of issues on social media and my website. I attended Ocean Heroes Bootcamp in Vancouver, in which I learnt new media skills, global connections, and the global problem. Picking up plastic will be as commonplace as brushing teeth for us kids in the future. If we cut the plastic tap now, it will still take us 40 years to clean up the mess. So to do with climate change, the first sort of thing was the no kelp dredge, which is just realising that without kelp, we would be in a bad place, because it is the rainforest of the ocean. The rainforests always get all the credit for giving us oxygen, but in fact they only give us in fact, the ocean creates 70% of oxygen and absorbs 50% of our CO2. I lobbied MSPs and visited Holyrood as they did the debate, and thankfully it got banned. We raised awareness of the issues with numerous wildlife celebrities and various newspaper articles to publicise the issue, as well as an online petition. I was the first child in Scotland/UK to school strike. Started striking 14th of December, 28 weeks now, every Friday in Ullapool or elsewhere. I travelled to the EU Parliament with Fridays to Future movement to speak to MEPs. I was invited to Holyrood to speak to the Environmental, Climate Change and Land Reform Committee. I met and interviewed Christiana Figueres, who, if it wasn't for her, the Paris Agreement wouldn't have gone through, and it's reached 197 countries now. And numerous TV and radio interviews, newspaper articles, and I was in The Big Issue, and used social media to again raise awareness. Now, as Jacques Cousteau said, we only protect what we love. To which I would add, but we only love what we know. Well, I love the ocean, and all the creatures that live there. I will fight to protect them and teach my generation how important they are, and I would encourage everyone here to help me and kids like me to do that. So over to you, the children's media. What are you going to do to help educate and inform kids about these critical issues? Because for the size of these issues, I think there is too much talk and not enough do. My future, your future, and the future of our unique blue planet depends on it. Thank you to CMC for inviting me here to speak, and thank you all for listening.
And he's 11, so watch out, world. And it brings me really to... That was terrific. That really was terrific. I'm disappointed they didn't stand up to cheer, really, but they will. So, panel, Floyd, Andrew, Helen, you can see names. Oh, panel names are going to appear up here in a minute, I think. My question for you, and you're just going to mull on this for a moment while I just give a little bit of context, but my question for you, and for all of you here too, perhaps, is what advice would you give your 11-year-old self looking back as learners? And this matters, you know, because the world's gone learning mad in a hugely encouraging way. But learning as we know it doesn't work for about half the kids in the world, roughly. You know, 2.2 billion children out there, about half of them are having a fairly torrid time of it. And of the half that are having an education, we seem to fail about a third, and of the 2/3 that are left, only half of them enjoy it, if you can do the maths on those fractions. So, you know, education isn't working all that good. And we've been meeting together to talk about children's media. You know, I've been a professor for 30 years, and we'll go back to the video discs. I think I was briefly the largest producer of CD-ROM in Europe. You'll be amazed to hear, but that's only because nobody were making very many, you know. But we've constantly talked about the empowerment that media gives us to have a voice, the democratisation of technology. And I think what you've seen here and we're going to talk about a lot, is, 30 years of us saying, this is a democratising technology, and now suddenly, around the world we've got the Friday strikes going on, we've got some terrifyingly articulate and wise children who are saying, you know what, enough, time to sort it out. And you couldn't have put that better, Finlay. I'm proud of what you said there, mate. Your parents should be bursting with pride and terror, really, because where this is all going is towards a very scary place. I think my favourite frightening statistic is no beach you've ever stood on in your entire life will exist in 35 years' time. That's a pretty stark thing. Every beach you've ever stood on, you'll be calf deep in 35 years. So it's interesting times, and here we are with probably the most powerful tool to change hearts and minds, to make things better. And three of the wisest folk, I only came because I heard we got a good panel. That was before I knew about Finlay. So Floyd, your 11-year-old self, sitting there in, where were you at 11?
11, I was in Bradford. I was born in Bradford. So at 11 years of age, I was going to White Manor School at that stage.
And you, my goodness, you've been around the world a bit. In Afghanistan is only a tiny corner of where we both were swapping conversation about Pakistan. I mean, our big project in Pakistan, Floyd knows it really well. So what would you say to the 11-year-old you?
I would have liked to say a number of things, but the thing I would definitely say would be to have as many experiences as you can and adventures, follow your super North Star, and then give something back to society. That would be my... That would be what
I was interested to hear... I'm interested to hear your plan when we were talking earlier. If you're going to do this, have a gap year on Sea Shepherd, off to St Andrews, but I'd kind of... If it was me, I'd tear up the plan, but keep the dreams, because you never would know where the dreams are going to lead you, but you be faithful to your dreams. Helen, what would you tell a little you?
I think I'm just so inspired by so many children today, and I would have liked to have told my 11-year-old self to look beyond my immediate surroundings. I think at my age my world was quite limited, and my awareness of what was going on further than my own doorstep. Clearly I didn't have the internet when I was 11, but I think even at that stage it would have been useful if there were more children like today's children.
Eyes on the horizon, is it? Mm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's I was trying to find my senior rail card coming up here on the train, and I pulled out my wallet, and I counted up because we were going global, and I realised I got 7 different currencies in my wallet. So that money hasn't kept up with going global. So it's not unreasonable to think education might have taken a while, and children's media might have taken even longer. But keeping your eyes on the horizon is quite hard, because of course we live on a longitude. When you're having dinner tonight, so are the people in Johannesburg, same time, same meal. But we also live on a latitude. When you go to bed, they're getting up in California, and you pass on your project. It goes around the world. It's very different living on the longitude to living on the latitude. So that looking around the world, you've got to look in 2 directions, I think, always. But yeah, Andrew, and I have to just say, I've just loved what Discovery have been doing for a long time, not just because of the content providers here, but because there's never been a heartbeat with Discovery when they haven't thought about professional development. How are we going to use the stuff? And so thank you for that. But what would you tell your 11-year-old?
Well, it's interesting. It's I think we're all thinking similar kind of things about that. Embrace experiences, take on those experiences, because I think from my point of view, looking back at my 11-year-old self, I think I entered the world that we're now in, where your career is not linear. And listening to everybody on the panel about their journey to being here today, and all the different routes we've been into, and the different experiences we've had, that as a 10 and 11-year-old, you need to prepare yourself for being in that world that you've no idea what will happen. So you need to embrace those experiences to prepare yourself for the experiences yet to come, and just kind of enjoy them for what they are. You never know where they're going to be valuable.
And I mean, would you all trust your 11-year-old self? I think the thing I'd say to my 11-year-old self is, trust yourself, you're not wrong. Go for it. I mean, was the 11-year-old Andrew a wise soul, or
I think probably not. Not as wise as you'd like to be in retrospect, but Finlay and I were certainly having a good conversation about this kind of idea earlier, and I think all of us on the panel probably strongly believe in giving voice to students, and that the things that students say are remarkable and are challenging and astonish us every time we work, and there should be no lack of ambition for students. I think it's quite often that educators make the mistake of giving the narrative to the students rather than letting students create the narrative for themselves. And certainly when I listen to students all around the world, they all have ambition for themselves in their local context, and I think what we can assist with is how they connect to that global context and seeing that they can make a difference, whether it be on their street, their beach, their town, their nation, or globally, that their ambition that they have at 10 and 11 is something that we need to connect to and not have knocked out to us by over-measurement in educational performance.
No, well...
Throw that controversy.
Let us speak not of measuring. No, I mean, it's... When I go back to those early kind of video disc days and the dawn of the internet, I remember, crikey, my first Christmas, just after the World Wide Web code had been released, you know, and I had an advent calendar on the internet, and it was the only one, you know, and I checked last Christmas, there were just over 7 million, so the things have exploded, but at the same time, I think, and a lot of folk here have been around this longer than me even, but you will have seen appropriation. When new things appear, doesn't matter whether it's the phone or the computer or, you know, I was part of the Google Glass development team, you know, doesn't matter what appears, it's either appropriated, we love your computer, you can have a class set, or it's confiscated, you know, you can't come in here with that phone. I think we've hit the point beyond appropriation. I think the technologies of new media, of new communication, can't be taken away. You know, Finlay's going to be walking around, you know, young Finlay in 10 years' time is going to be sitting here with a pair of Nikon contact lenses watching data from all over the world, and he can't take his eyes out, so he's off and away. You know. Are you optimistic at the moment about where all this is going? And this is my question to all three of you, and I'm going to have a show of hands from you. Are you optimistic about where it's all going, or do you fear the measuring and the heavy hand of the many departments around the world clamping down on the creative? This has been such a creative community. Are you hopeful?
Right, so what I would say is, I think it's a brilliant question as well. So I think creativity, you'll not stop it. So you go quite right. It's out, it's going to go. But I think you still have to come back to some fundamentals that are not going to change on performance, on what people require, some character traits, some beliefs, some simple elements. Because whilst I would say you could have a set of glasses on here that give you lots of data, you will still have to take them off to look out to make sure you don't miss something coming your way. So I think you have to be really careful about where the balance of these things go, not to one extreme, where you're completely immersed with thousands of tons of data that means nothing. It doesn't give you any information. It overloads you with things that are not relevant to the things that definitely are going to help you go to another level of performance. And you have to come back to what does performance look like? And for me, it will always be being really clear on what direction you want to go. What is that, what I class as a super North Star? So what are you trying to achieve? What is the strategy, the facts, the figures, and detail? What emotion